Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, everyone. It's the end of the year. Time for a top 5. So, how many games did I cover? Wow, that's actually worse than last year. Don't expect this top 5 to be too predictable though, because on top of the full reviews, I am also including spotlights in this year's count.
You padding the review count, bro?
No, I actually planned to do that from the start this year. Because with YouTube's changes, I had to be more careful about what gets long, in-depth reviews. It sucks, but I really am stuck doing spotlights for more racy content that I can only take screenshots of rather than full gameplay recordings. But enough of that, let's start Zerodomai's top 5 games played in 2019. Number 5. Toby Hime. Starting off by showing my commitment to viewing my spotlights as fair and legitimate critique, Toby Hime by Circle Dystopia Story is an eroge that I would have loved to go in depth about, but simply put, it's hentai Angry Birds, but has far more effort put into it than what that description would imply, with each of the girls, or I guess you can call them what they really are, projectiles, functioning like payload-carrying missiles, where you click once to launch them, then click a second time to activate their unique attack in order to damage the various targets. There are also RPG stats, a leveling system, and elemental affinities, but I did think those were a bit much for such a simple game. What makes it particularly fun though is collecting all the various units in the game by breeding them, and by breeding I mean throwing the girls at the enemy's butt first Princess Peach style, resulting in copies or sometimes even more powerful hybrid units. This game is a bit on the small side, to the point that I'm pretty sure there's a mobile version out there somewhere, but it's plenty enjoyable as you beat the puzzles, collect the waifus, and watch the animations. They go into a animation Number 4. Fate Extella Link. To be honest, this was a toss-up between Fate and Senran Kagura because I generally feel the same way about both. Gameplay improvements, tempered by weaker stories, and a few technical problems. What ends Fate Extella Link by Marvelous out for the win though was just how significant the gameplay improvements from Extella to Link were.
What did it cost?
Too bad the story was so forgettable. Far from perfect, the game did a good job at being what I believe a Fate-based action game should be. Power fantasy with tons of highly animated attacks, big explosions, and swift combat. It did a good job at providing all of these while adding a few interesting choices that give the game its Fate feel, like putting the Master out on the battlefield. I actually think that's only the second game I know of to do this. I still think the game did miss the mark with a few features like the equipment system, the lack of stage hazards, and the reduction in fan service, though the models got a thick boost to compensate. Oh, and not having a plot that amounts to anything. While the game is a significant improvement over its predecessor, I still think it's just not there yet overall. Hey, another comparison to Senran Kagura, and that's why this game caps out at number 4. Nothing truly had the oomph I really wanted in a franchise with the freaking Emiya theme in it, or more recently, the Spinal Coaster boss theme from CCC. Number 3. Risk of Rain. This game is addicting, something that its successor is also guilty of. Risk of Rain by Hoppo Games shows just how much fun the roguelike formula is with quick just drop in and start playing gameplay. No crazy story, no dramatic reveals, the game is simply just shoot, jump, try to survive, and make it to the end. Now honestly, I think some people might be confused on why my channel is covering this type of game, though it's far from the weirdest content I put out, but this is just genuine fun. Running around killing enemies, opening chests for a random item used to kill more enemies, and a timer that's continuously trying to kill you. It all comes full circle. And making it even more fun are the modifiers that you can unlock, altering the experience in case you do get bored. Sure, it's not the most stimulating game visually, but even on a more aesthetic level, the sound work is fantastic, adding the right amount of oomph to every action in the game. Highly recommend despite it being an older title. As you progress through the game, you will quickly start to see all that space eaten up by numerous enemies, semi-tricky platforming, and my favorite thing in video games. Okay, second favorite thing. Damage numbers. I have a problem. Honorable mention. Risk of Rain 2.
This chart is rigged.
You're goddamn right.
What can I say? The game's addicting. Risk of Rain 2, again by Hoppo Games, is an amazing sequel to the original Risk of Rain, taking the ideas of exploring a hostile environment while collecting random items to survive and putting it in a 3D space. Now honestly, I do believe the two games do offer a different experience due to that dimensional difference, but Risk of Rain 2 does have the added benefit of being a sequel that can learn from its predecessor's missteps in order to make a better experience. And hell, it's got easily accessed multiplayer now, 10 out of 10. But here's the thing, it's early access, not a proper release, and won't be a proper release for some time. That holds it back from being on this list, as there are many aspects of the game that don't have all the content I think they should have, like stage variety, hidden secrets, character abilities, and a final boss would be nice. Wonderful game, and I will sing its praise until I get sacrificed at the altar, but I won't blame anyone for waiting till, again, the proper release. While the original was a 2D platformer, the sequel is obviously a 3-dimensional third-person shooter, which means maps are now sprawling battlefields, you have to aim all of your attacks, and the huntress got a booty like pow. Dishonorable mention. Fate Grand Order. I had to put this game somewhere on the list, and after a lot of deliberation, dishonorable it is. Do I think FGO is a bad game? No. But in my opinion, the title is soured by the continuous controversies that the localization team inevitably ends up in, from Detroit Emiya to Agartha to Osakabe Hime. These things just sour my experience with an otherwise fun Fate game, pushing me to look at other titles. And it is really fun. If you are the type of person to not care about localization changes or censorship, then go right ahead, the water's fine. There is a production value here that I'm just not seeing out of other mobile games right now. The main campaign, while it does have its dips, is overall really interesting as you work to save the world from incineration, with fun, drama, and fan service aplenty. But for me, I don't really want to spend money on it right now, and that willingness to give money to a mobile game is a big sign for the title's quality or its consumer friendliness. I'm just tired and I'm taking a break from the game. Hopefully I come back before I miss any more servants I initially planned to roll for. And hey, localization team, you do get points for not censoring Abby. And keeping things on the down low by only elaborating on these decisions during con appearances that aren't recorded for your paying customers who might not have $2,000 lying around to gallivant around the country doesn't help anything, you underhanded fuck. Japanese servants like Nobunaga Oda, Chinese servants like Jin Kei, French servants like Edmond Dantes, England, Florence Nightingale, Irish, Skahak, Egyptian, Ozymandias, American, Christopher Columbus. Oh, say can you see? Number 1. Sengoku Rance.
Chart is rigged. Also, why did you skip to number 1?
Well, first of all,
You're goddamn right.
but more seriously, the game's official localization was this year, and I did do a fresh review of it, so to respect Manga Gamer's efforts, it goes on this year's list. Secondly, if I was going to include Sengoku Rance, then it would obviously get the number 1 spot, and what's the fun in that? So I'm gonna jump the line a bit and cover this one first. Sengoku Rance is my current holder for perfect eroge. Great balance between content, as well as a great main story, fun gameplay, and probably the best eroge protagonist in existence. Just ask the polls. But something that plagued the original review and was only kinda addressed in the new one was the difficulty of the game. I really do want to emphasize that those star difficulties do really tighten up the lack of a challenge Sengoku Rance can show in his first playthrough. Even just 1 star was enough to make my run of the Nanjo-Ron route I did in prep for my review feel so much better, and throw in the free-for-all mod Darkness Hero Rance, currently available for the Japanese version only, and Sengoku Rance has to be my number 1 game I played in 2019. Number 2. Valkyria Chronicles 4.
Rigged.
Right.
If Sengoku Rance can squeak by on a technicality, then damn it, the review for VC4 went up in January. I will never stop singing praise about this franchise, and if Fate Extella Link and Senran Kagura were titles that mostly improved but missed the mark in some ways, Valkyria Chronicles 4 by Sega hit the mark so hard it went through the paper, burst out of the building, and flew into someone else's house where there was an unnecessary hot spring sequence in the middle of winter. VC4 has a lot to prove, being the first title in the franchise since the original to be made with major hardware in mind, and it hits it out of the park in every way. From the harrowing story, to the unique gameplay, to the eye-watering visuals, it actually brought me back to the feeling I had when I first set my eyes on the original over a decade ago. I did think it was a bit of a shame that the racial prejudice elements were sidelined a bit, and the anime aspects of the game were turned up to 11. Though let's be real, that's positive in my book, your mileage may vary. Speaking of subjective things, the only real criticism of the title overall that I feel is the difficulty. Now, I understand that the game is pretty solid in terms of a challenge for the average person, but after playing the original with the Galleon Crossfire mod, or more recently, Doomy Doom's Imperial Onslaught mod, I've been spoiled like a hentai character after being I can't go back, and I can only hope Doomy Doom eventually releases Imperial Onslaught 4th edition or something. Overall though, this title is fantastic, and it's a shame that from what I've heard, the game did not perform as Sega wanted it to. But in 2019, the game was updated to the Complete Edition, bundling all of the DLC with the base game even for people who already purchased the title. In a way, she's the backside of the team, backbone. Despite being a sniper, the team can really get behind her. A strong independent character that is willing to butt into any conversation she needs to. So that's it for 2019. Better luck next year when it comes to content, and not just reviews. I missed the mark with a bunch of videos I wanted to make, including some manga spotlights that got turned into animes while I was slipping, some game reviews that I put off endlessly, and let's not even talk about my streaming consistency. Now overall, this year was interesting in terms of content creation. Patreon, a platform I use, made changes that negatively affect political and adult creators that resulted in even more people refusing to donate to the service. YouTube made multiple foot-in-mouth plays that made creators feel unwanted or threatened on the service. And the news outlets that cover topics of censorship and niche content I pay attention to have stepped in it in ways that I can only hope they recover from, because they're the only ones who cover that sort of content, and pushing people away from your platform will only cause more people to be ignorant about those events. On the bright side, YouTube is considering more mature ads for demonetized content. Tons of games came out of various genres and age ratings, though not all of them turned out the way I hoped, and even interesting and unique content creation on YouTube has held strong. So to end this video, I want to quickly cycle through a bunch of stuff of all shapes and sizes that I want to try covering in the upcoming year. So kick back and maybe tally up all the things you see that interest you and leave it in the comment section along with your thoughts on my top 5. With that said, peace, matane, and have a happy holidays and a happy new year.